a police officer. He had a deep and raspy voice, and she was thrown face down in a busy intersection. He terrorized women all over Central Arkansas, and is imprisoned as a serial rapist. He definitely was a serial rapist. Brenda Hale Tyson says she was a retired Arkansas State Police official who worked on that case. Now, the story is as much about this woman who was interviewed by a television reporter about these events 20 years ago with the blue light rapists. But all around the country, there have been instances of courageous men masquerading as police officers, and they have dash-mounted lights in what look like ordinary cars, unmarked cars. They are disguising themselves as police officers and pulling people over. Those greatly vulnerable are women. Those who are vulnerable to credulity, they are vulnerable in what they believe, and they're willing to fearfully respect the blue lights and the sign that it means you are under arrest. Blue lights mean you are being stopped. That's what an arrest is. You are stopped and arrested. And of course, not knowing that she had rights to defend and protect herself, she was swept into the back seat of her attacker's car and molested. Now, the danger in Chattanooga is the very same thing, except the disguise is not as a private party masquerading as police officer. It is a police officer masquerading as a private party and having a vehicle, a motor vehicle, that looks like any other car on the road, any other car or motor vehicle on the road. And we have police enforcement today in Chattanooga, in Hamilton County, by at least two jurisdictions. One, as far as I can tell, well, one for sure is the Chattanooga Police Department, and the second is the Tennessee Valley Authority, the coal-burning nuclear plant operating power utility that sells electricity to Electric Power Board, EPB, for resale to you, the resident or the business person here in the area. And that utility, which burns coal, has police on patrol, and they are enforcing Tennessee law in a non-discriminatory way. In other words, they are enforcing any laws that they think they can enforce. They are about law enforcement. The Tennessee Valley Authority has changed its mission. It is no longer about lowest rates, lowest price, and economic development, as Scott Fiedler says is this great, great calling. It now is about other things as well, being part of the police state, the American police state, with multiple organizations, multiple agencies, federal, enforcing law here. Now, we're not sure whether the Department of Education, which funds the Hamilton County Education Department of Education, has sniping equipment and grenade launchers here to protect the facilities in Chattanooga. We don't know about that. We're not sure whether other agencies, the Railroad Retirement Pension, for example, whether in his offices here there is a tripod-mounted grenade launcher to make sure that when an auditor goes out to check on a retiree, that he has backup in case he needs it. We're not quite sure how far the federal government has gone in maintaining its rights, right? Maintaining its show of authority here in Chattanooga. Well, this is David Tulis, and the blue light rapist, 20 years ago, victims speaking out. These are women who've been raped, and one is giving an interview very, very recently, just about 30 days ago, to a reporter, and this the story picked up by I think Matt Agarist, perhaps, or another writer, recounting what she says about this. Now, there are, we bring this up because I'm making a review right now of the authority of unmarked vehicles. And if I can just get a moment to interview Phil Noblett, the deputy city attorney, about this authority, because I've asked him and he said he would get back to me. And in fact, the city attorney, Wade Hinton, when I assailed him on the sidewalk outside City Hall about 2.5 weeks ago, said that he would get back to me as well. So we need to we're going to find out from city government about the authority of this dangerous practice, a dangerous practice for several reasons. One reason that I explained today at Nooganomics.com in my review, in my rehearsing of the legal issues, right? Rehearsing for your benefit of the rights issues that the new chief will have to deal with. One reason is the question of notice. Notice to the public about a policing activity, about a law enforcement activity. Now, we know the city police department does give notice when the High Court in the Hicks ruling and the earlier Downey ruling. Hicks came out of a Suck Creek road arrest in Helena County about 10 years ago. That ruling makes it very clear that roadblocks cannot be a surprise to the public. They cannot be a surprise. They have to be strictly supervised by management. There's no field officer saying, well, let's just do a roadblock and see whom we catch now. Let's see what we can get. No fishing expeditions. There has to be publication. There has to be notice published in newspapers. And then finally, the notice to the public has to be in the way of a sign warning the traveler or the operator of a motor vehicle that a roadblock is ahead and giving him a chance to escape. Now, that's something you need to know. If you are traveling in a car in Tennessee, a lawful roadblock never comes up upon you upon surprise. Okay, you have one chance to escape, a single chance. Okay, so you'll see a sign up ahead on the right, and it says roadblock ahead. If you don't take that right turn or that left turn, right then, when you see that sign, you're going to have to go through it. And you are said by the High Court to be effectively waiving your right to avoid it, right? You've waived it because you've gotten notice and you didn't act upon it, and so you're going to have to go through it and subject yourself either to DUI or driver's license. I'm not sure about driver's license, but a DUI check is usually what is the motive for a roadblock. I know in Saudi Daisy, that's the cause, the reason for the roadblock, and never has anybody been caught under DUI at a Saudi Daisy roadblock, according to Chief Jeff, Assistant Chief, acting Chief Jeff Gann, according to a report in Nooganomics.com. There hasn't been anybody caught. So this is a Nashville-centered, state-funded program paying overtime for officers, and no one's caught. So the question now is a warning. Now, we're talking here about the police chief coming in Chattanooga. Mayor Andy Burke is in charge of the police department, and when he lost the services of Fred Fletcher after 3 years, he is now selecting from among three that he graciously allowed a committee to choose for him and to offer to him as his option. So the chief's choice is the mayor's. Well, why is that? Well, that's because the police department is part of the executive branch of government, right? In Tennessee, Chattanooga government, like city government, like in national government, there are three branches. There's the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch. City government reflects that triple parts, that tripartite reality, and there's the city council is the legislative branch, right? Well, that's right. And city court, traffic court handles ordinances and certain state offenses that are delegated by the state to the city in the nature of traffic. Not all, but some. And then there's the executive branch of city government, the one who executes things, right? And that's the mayor. And Mayor Burke executes city rules. And under the current way things are done, have not been legally challenged sufficiently yet. There is the enforcement statute by the city. Now, you think I'm going down a rabbit trail on that, but I'm not really. But there is a question raised by litigation. A sequence of appeals by Basil Marceau, the perennial candidate, and the police reform activist, raising questions about city authority to enforce statute, generally speaking. This has not been resolved, and you will find coverage of this issue only at Nooganomics.com, the only website that is the only media platform in Chattanooga that has covered this issue. And I look carefully at when people make legal claims, as Basil Marceau does. I look carefully at their bases or bases, and I'm convinced that I'm 80% convinced that Basil Marceau may be onto something remarkable in his repeated interlocutory appeals to the criminal court of appeals and to the civil court of appeals in either Nashville or Knoxville. And so there's that question of the overall authority. But now the authority for unmarked cars is in question. Getting back to notice here. Note in when you have a roadblock, there has to be notice. Okay, when the city government and when the mayor has a speed trap or a radar trap with one of those unmarked police interceptor four-door hybrid sort of cruiser type cars, like the one, for example, on Highway 153, is always in the same place facing south at the interchange with Hickson Pike. There's a sign put up that says something to the effect of radar enforcement ahead. Now that's called notice, right? You're getting notice that this car is on the prowl, and if you're going past the 40-mile-an-hour speed limit, you may get a ticket. A civil claim made against you filed by mail. The officer does not chase you; he just simply mails it to you after photographing you in excess of the speed based on his radar reading. You're getting notice. Okay, an unmarked car does not give you notice of the vehicle in public service. So that's a problem also. There should be highly visible police cars. If we have 500 officers and 350, 400 cars, I'm not sure how many, let them be highly visible, constantly reminding people that the law is there and that the law is being enforced. And you need to see us and we see you, right? That needs to be the message is as much that we're being seen as that we're seeing you. Now, when police cars are operating in disguise as private travelers, there is this lack of notice. So you're going down the highway, and the car behind you is an unmarked a police car in disguise, and suddenly the lights come on in the dashboard. You have not been given notice. Right? When the car has roof-mounted lights, you have notice, and you better be paying attention because if you don't slow down instantly, he needs a couple miles to measure your speed, to verify your speed, and showing that you're completely indifferent to all things around you, including the speed signs. Right, the fact that you didn't notice him behind you with his mounted lights is a sign that you intended to violate the speeding statute that applies to commerce, and that you therefore are liable to be ticketed and sent to city court or sessions court. So that's the benefit of notice that you're not getting in Chattanooga with this approach that the new chief of police will have to deal with in some way or other. Now, the candidates are the first one from Los Angeles. He's been first in all the reports at Chattanooga.com and at Time Free Press. Todd Chamberlain from Los Angeles. Then there's Ed McPherson. And the third one is David Roddy. David Roddy is a Caucasian. His little bio that the committee wrote and everybody just dutifully reposted says that he's been 23 years at the department, worked his way up from the ranks from patrol officer and served as captain over several divisions, including internal affairs, the whitewash department, and uniformed services. He's been focusing on data and technology-driven policing, developing the predictive community and intelligence-led policing, the pre-crime program, and creating, we're told, new mission, vision, and values for the department. And he is now acting chief. Now he is the one who has drawn the notice of the progressive left in the past couple of weeks, objecting to his military interest, his militarization of the police. Now look at Nooganomics.com and look at his picture. There's an amazing photograph of Acting Chief David Roddy at Nooganomics.com, one that was picked up from, I think, the Twitter account of the Chattanooga Police Department, or from the Facebook page of the department. Now, so there are several issues. One, let's just move on here. David Tulis here at Nooga Radio. The one is unmarked cars and notice, and I'd say that unmarked cars are close to being a nuisance. They're a nuisance because they are assaultive and they create fear. They create fear. The High Court in the Hicks ruling and also Downey, the Downey case, said that fear is not to be engendered in the public, in the innocent traveler. Okay, so there should not be fear in the heart of the innocent traveler by roadblocks. And I'm wondering to what extent that fear and apprehension, the fear of injury, is evoked in the breast of the woman traveling at night on on a city street that is not lit and has a long quiet stretch, that the car behind her is in fact a police officer. The police department, the police department's responses to my questions on this point are simply unworkable. Well, just have the person call 911. Well, what happens if that person is a stranger in town and doesn't know where she is, right? And the man behind her is coming up right close behind her with his blue lights on. How does she know where she is? She may not know. And what about traveling some long distance before reaching a place that's well lighted? People are afraid of police, especially if they're black. And so this traveler, to go a long distance before reaching a clean, well lighted place, maybe the kind that Ernest Hemingway mentions in that story by that title, may be a while. And people are so full of fear of cops that they're not willing to do that and maintain their own personal safety and integrity. So those suggestions by Rob Simmons, the police spokesman, are not practical. They're not practical, and they can't be universal. And that's because we have strangers in town who don't know where they are, and there are places that you can go for some distance where there's no clean, well-lighted place, no public place, no private place. So that's a problem. That's a real problem, and reform is in view. Now, there are others as well, and that would be touching on the nature of traffic stops that have as a presumption of guilt that these stops almost always begin with a presumption of guilt, and the citizen is unaware of how to deal with this claim. There needs to be, on the part of the traveler or the motor vehicle operator, a presumption of innocence and an assertion of that person's innocence and an assertion and an invocation of that person's rights. That's rarely done, and so police have a habit in traffic and transportation stops of demanding driver's license, demanding insurance, proof of insurance and registration when they don't even have probable cause. Now, if you're not free to leave, here's the problem. If you're not free to leave and that means you're under arrest, right? You can't be under arrest and not free to leave. If you're free to leave, then you're not under arrest and you simply need to drive away. That's the question you have to ask. Am I free to leave? If you're not free to leave, then you are under arrest. Police department policy, that's the question, and the answer then needs to be, well, let me Mirandize you. That is to say, tell you that if you say or do or show anything, that will be used against you in court. Now, that's the truth. And the officer will not tell you that you're under arrest. He will say you're being detained. And so he wants to talk with you so that you will give him the probable cause or reasonable suspicion that he doesn't really have. Well, your tag light was out. Okay, well, all right. If that's it, then cite me for that. But I'm not giving you any. I'm not showing you or giving you anything absent probable cause or a statement of probable cause or a search warrant for me or my property. That's the position that the free person should take. But we're not free. Okay, we've not been trained how to be free. Public school has seen to that, and so no one really knows about this quiet shift of the presupposition against you. The supposition needs to be against the officer. He needs to have probable cause or reasonable suspicion or a warrant, or he has to have seen you do something that is a crime. Okay, now if you have the dome light over your license plate is out, that's probable cause to stop you. Okay, so you can say, well, just issue me the citation. I'll sign my name and give my address, and that's it. But I'm not giving you anything else. I'm not showing you anything else because I have nothing. You have no probable cause at all. And I'm not going to give you anything. I'm not giving anything away to you that will incriminate me in court, because that's what he wants. Every traffic stop has as its ultimate goal a DUI arrest or a drug bust. That's what happens. And so you need to be careful in those circumstances. So there's this long habit in every police department in the state. Chattanooga's is no different from that of any other city, and that is that you do not have any rights to due process. There's no due process envisioned in any of those stops. And yet, in fact, you do have that due process right. And that's where the challenges are being done in court. And what will the police department do about the people who are driving on revoked licenses because they're too poor to pay their court fees? What about those people? These are reforms that are in court. There's another reform in court that is the J. Hirsch case, and that is the right to travel versus the operation of commerce on the roadway. Where is the chief of police going to stand on some of those questions? This is David Tulis, and we are wondering, as Mayor Burke decides whom to put forth as his new chief.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader, Nooga Radio.